Good morning. It's time for today's AM Minnesota program. There's a huge event coming up down in Rochester this weekend. It's called The Feast, the local foods marketplace, or more commonly referred to as a farmer's market on steroids. That's what we want to talk about this morning. And also the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, because they are sponsoring this event. My guest in the program, someone that most everybody here in Minnesota knows, it's Tim Penny. He's the president and CEO of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. Good morning, Tim, and thanks for coming on the program again.
Good morning, Jerry. Everything well up there in Faribault?
Yes, we are sliding our way toward warmer weather. Some of us are already looking forward to the winter being done.
Yeah, well, can you believe this November?
Oh,
We've only had a couple days of bad weather the whole month, and and pretty soon Christmas will be here, and that's why we like to schedule this Feast Festival just between the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, so that people looking forward to Christmas can think about showing up at this event and getting some local foods to put on their holiday table, or maybe buy some local foods-related gifts for people on their gift list. So it's always a great event.
And by the way, Tim, you've got a nice crew there. Hats off to Callie Roland Hagen, who contacted me, got it organized, and boy, young kids nowadays with all this technology. This morning I start getting reminders on my cell phone and my computer.
She's a real asset to the foundation, and the nice thing is that she comes from where you and I come from.
Yeah, well, I always say
the Keister Wells area.
My claim to fame is Tim Penny was basically born and grew up the first years of your life of just a few miles down the road from my home farm at a place that we all know of as Penny Lake.
Yeah. My great-great-grandfather homesteaded there back in 1861 or 1862, and I still have a relative, but it's on my mother's side of the family, because my dad's side is the side of the family that homesteaded that property. But I have a relative now on my mom's side of the family that lives right on the edge of Penny Lake, so it's kind of nice that it's still in the family in that sense. But that is our home turf, and that's where Callie Roland Hagen is from. And she, like a lot of young people, went off to college and went off to work in the big city. And a year and a half ago, we were lucky that she decided she wanted to return to her roots, and we've had her working for us here as our communications person, and she does an outstanding job.
Let's talk more about the Feast, the local foods marketplace, after the market break. We have to take a break for the markets here in just a couple minutes, Tim. Let's spend this time, maybe a little bit after the break, too, talking about the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. Boy, it sounds like a great organization that's trying to help rural communities.
Happy to do so. We can do that when we come back from your commercial.
Well, we've got 2 minutes left, so let's talk.
We do.
Yes,
I thought you were doing one of these. I'm rushing you to a break, Mr. Penny. Yeah. Well, look at we can talk more about the local foods festival after the break, because we're going to need more time for that. But in short, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, which I've had the honor to lead for the last 8 years, is a regional foundation focused on the economic future of our south central, southeastern Minnesota territory. It's a 20-county region. For me, it's an affair of the heart, because it's very much the same area that I served when I was in Congress some years ago. And we invest in three ways. We help smaller towns create community funds, and right now there are 26 small town community funds that we help to manage. And then they can invest in their own future in a variety of ways by raising dollars and creating endowment funds for their town. We also invest almost $2 million a year in a variety of ways in early childhood. We do provider trainings. We offer parenting classes at various work sites. We give away thousands and thousands of early learner books every year. One of those programs is in partnership with all of the Kiwanis clubs here in southern Minnesota. So an awful lot of work that we do in early childhood. And then the third thing we do is investments in entrepreneurs, business startups. We have some equity funding. We do 25 or so small business startup or early stage business loans every year. And then our work in the local foods realm, and that's where the Feast Festival comes into the picture, is part of what we're doing to promote the economy here in southern Minnesota, because we're a region where local foods can be a big part of our economy going forward.
Boy, you are a highly trained radio professional. 5 seconds left for the market. Boy, are you good. Talk to you in just a bit, Tim. We have to check out the markets. The guest in the program today is Tim Penny, who's the president and CEO of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. I have to say again, Tim, boy, your internal clock. You could be in radio, hitting that market break right on time.
Well, I learned in politics, for example, that when you give a speech, you have to be prepared to give the same speech in 5-minute, 15-minute, and 50-minute increments, depending upon what the audience wants. And so I have learned a little bit about meeting the mark on these tight radio schedules.
It occurred to me when I was listing the markets, I was also thinking about you working at the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, and pretty much your whole life, Tim, has been serving the public. You were a Minnesota representative,
state senator from your home turf, my home turf, for 6 years.
And then out in Washington, D.C., you've really made your passion serving others, and that kind of fits in with the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation too, doesn't it?
Well, it really does, and that's why, as I said earlier, this is very much an affair of the heart for me to serve this area. But, the nice thing about serving as the leader of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation is that everything we do here is about collaboration and partnership with other groups and organizations that are working on the same issues to the benefit of this region. It goes without saying that in the political realm, there's not a lot of collaboration or partnership.
I've noticed that.
An awful lot of fighting and finger pointing and gridlock. So I really enjoy this work because every week we're getting things done, and everything we do in partnership with others, and that's the way it ought to be.
Before we move on to talking about all the details of the feast coming up this weekend at the Mayo Civic Center there in downtown Rochester, Gordy asked me to ask you, put your former state senator and United States congressman hat on. What were your thoughts on the election that, we're still talking about?
Well, I wasn't entirely surprised. Earlier in the year, actually probably in the August time frame, it looked like Trump might not do so well because, not only was he an unconventional candidate, but he often would say things that weren't at all politically correct. But I think there was an overarching mood going on that people were just tired of the status quo. They were looking for change. And some people said, when several states that voted for Obama 8 years ago and again 4 years ago flip and vote for Trump, it's that they really are trying to send a message that they want something different. And I think they were looking for something different with Obama. They voted for change. His slogan was hope and change. And maybe after all these years, they feel like they didn't quite get it, or that Washington didn't quite respond the way they were hoping. And so they voted for change again. I think Secretary Clinton's big disadvantage this year was that, having been on the national scene for so many years in the White House, helping her husband craft the first attempt at health care reform, then going on to serve in the Senate from New York State, coming back to run for president, and then being selected by Obama after he defeated her for that nomination to be Secretary of State. She represented Washington. She represented the status quo, and I think in the final analysis, that just wasn't what folks were looking for this year, and that's why Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, many states that had voted for Obama a few years ago flipped and voted for Trump this time around.
The thing that bothers me most about the whole political situation is how nasty and personal it is. And can't, Tim, sometimes reasonable people disagree on an issue, but does that mean if you disagree, then you want to destroy them or just hate them?
It seems to have come to that point. And one of my great frustrations is that, back in the day, campaigns were not quite so expensive, and they were more grassroots oriented. I know when I ran for Congress, and before that when I ran for the state Senate, it was mostly about door knocking and community events and getting out and meeting the people. And now it's become such a media game, and then social media. You can spread a lie pretty fast through social media, and so the whole nature of politics has changed in the last 20 years or so. And on top of that, these outside groups come in and spend a ton of money. In fact, these outside groups are spending more money on campaigns than the candidates themselves, and virtually all of the outside stuff is negative. It's attack-style campaigning, and I don't know how you stop that, but that's really a big part of what's poisoned our political atmosphere in the last number of years.
Well, let's move on and talk about something more fun. The big event coming up this weekend, as I mentioned earlier, it's just what the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation is all about, to organize something like this. And what was it, 2014 was the first one? It's been hugely successful and growing ever since.
Yeah, it really has. The Local Foods Festival grew out of the fact that as we at our foundation began to look at requests coming to us from local food producers and processors, it really helped us to better understand what great potential there was here in our corner of the state for local foods to be a big part of economic growth. Historically, we've had Hormel, we've had the various corn pack and pea pack facilities with Green Giant and other companies. We have a lot of dairy processing here in this corner of the state. We've always been, we've always had a big part of our Southern Minnesota economy tied to agriculture. It's probably 24% of our economy and roughly 24% of our jobs that are tied to agriculture one way or another today. But local food seems to be an area where there's potential for future growth. You see that clearly in the farmers markets here in our part of the state, but you also see it in terms of the interest on the part of grocery stores and restaurants, not just in our region, but across the state and across the country for that matter, that like locally sourced stuff to put on their shelves and to put on their menus. And so we began to get more and more loan requests from individuals who are trying to grow their local foods business. Maybe it's syrups, maybe it's cheeses, maybe it's meats, so when that happened, we started reaching out to other folks in the region, like Renewing the Countryside, a very well-regarded nonprofit, and talking to them about what could we do to help build the local foods economy in southern Minnesota. And one of the ideas that grew out of this collaboration was an idea to put on an annual local foods festival, which we now call the Feast Festival. And so this is our third year. And we have about 110 exhibitors that will be presenting their wares, their food, their processed items. And last year we had 1,500 people come through and sample these local foods, and every one of these folks walked out with a grocery bag in their hands because they bought stuff to take home for the holidays, either for the table or for gifts for friends or relatives. And so we expect this year is going to be even bigger and better than the past year. It just seems to become a nicer event each year. And it's again this coming Saturday, December 3rd, from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon at the Rochester Mayo Civic Center. And it's kind of a family affair. We have games for the kids. We have little pop-up videos that will be shown throughout the day. We also have cooking shows that are going to be presented throughout the day. And then, just checking out all this local stuff is I think, something that's going to be fun for folks to do. We all like farmers markets, and this is, as you said at the outset, sort of like a farmers market on steroids.
It seems like over the years, well, it's safe to say that the ordinary consumer has gotten more and more removed from production agriculture. But then it seems like as they've been getting more and more removed, all at once they want to know more and more about where their food comes from too, don't they?
Yep, they do. There's a curiosity factor, and I think a growing appreciation for what it takes to produce food and to bring those processed food items to our grocery shelves or to the menu at the favorite restaurant. So I think this is a way for folks to reconnect with rural. And I actually Friday, the day before the open house where the public is invited, we have all of our exhibitors just setting up and we have, I think, about 40 buyers, and these would be institutional buyers, hospitals, schools, restaurants, grocery stores that are going to come and sample stuff, and every year there are a number of purchase contracts that result from these buyers, and so that's another big part of the event, is to help give our local food producers and processors an opportunity to get their stuff in front of someone who might enter into a purchasing agreement and help them become a more profitable enterprise.
And look at the dollars that those institutions, they're going to spend the money on food somewhere, but if they can access it locally, that stays in this area, and those dollars keep rolling over and over in our communities.
Yep, that's right, and that's a big part of why we do this. It's nothing but a win-win for our part of the state to have an event like this and to promote these local food producers and processors in the way we do.
So
it's not a pricey event, so if people want to come, it is $5 a head. But if you live anywhere near the Rochester area, you can go to the Hy-Vee stores there or to the local food co-op. I think it's People's Local Food Co-op, which is right near downtown. And you can get 2-for-1 coupons at those stores between now and probably even into Saturday. And that'll cut down the cost of coming to the event if you get these coupons.
Just happen to think, you briefly mentioned it too, with Christmas coming up, you're looking for something unique for that Christmas gift rather than the same old. I'll bet you could come up with some ideas on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty there, and all of the exhibitors have come prepared to not only offer samples, so you can sample their stuff, but they come prepared to make retail sales right there on the spot. And we do have some folks that are in the wine and beer category as well. So I think if you want to sample that stuff, you have to buy a separate ticket or permit for that. But we're really trying to feature that this year. But we have folks with sausages and meat products. We have a variety of jams and jellies and syrups and dressings and cheese products. The list goes on and on of the types of local food items that will be available to sample and to purchase at this event.
And grocery stores are really promoting what they can access locally. You go out to the local grocery store in Faribault, and you'll see a sign, locally grown apples, or this produce was grown, within 50 miles. So they obviously see some value in that because the grocery stores are marketing it, the local.
Oh, yeah. It's all about customer demand, and more people are preferring to buy things locally if they can find it. And so the store owners and the restaurant owners are responding to that by highlighting sections in the store that are devoted to things that are produced here locally. So, it's a growing sector, and one that our corner of the state is uniquely positioned to benefit from, because we have an awful lot of farmers who, small-scale farmers who grow stuff for the farmers market, but many of them would really like to build that into a more profitable business enterprise, and one way to do that is to tap into the commercial market with stores and restaurants, and an event like the one we've created with Renewing the Countryside and other partners is helping to is helping to create that opportunity for these producers and processors to get their products better known and into the stores and restaurants in our state.
Now, that's why it's such a great idea that on Friday there's a specific time with the trade show, the vendors, and the buyers, so they can have their time, but yet then the public can enjoy everything that you have the next day on Saturday.
Yep, that's right. So that's how it's set up in that way, so that the buyers really can have exclusive time with our local foods producers and processors. And then it's a more festive day on Saturday, where you come through and you just kind of feel the spirit in the room, and it's fun to see families walking through with their kids, and the kids will often go to the play area, and some people will go to the cooking shows that are being held concurrent with the event. But some of those buyers also hang around and come on Saturday because they want to see they want to see what the retail customers are looking for, and so that's kind of an interesting way for them to gauge which of these products we ought to be putting on our shelves, because they seem to be drawing a lot of attention at this feast festival.
And maybe talk to the consumers, stay connected. What did you think of this one? What did you think of that one? What do you think of maybe putting it in our grocery store? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Stay connected.
Yep, that's the way they do it.
Wow.
So we're very excited about the event, and again, the doors do open at 10:00 on Saturday. So it tends to be really, really busy for the first several hours, but we do run it all the way to 4:00 for those that maybe have other things to do earlier in the day. They can still stop by and attend the event anytime between 10 and 4:00. And as I said earlier, I really do encourage folks to think this is a family outing, because the kids will enjoy it. The people that bring their kids are always happy to do so. There are things for the kids to do, and there's lots of good stuff to sample. So it's a fun day for the family. So or bring friends along if you're just looking for an outing with your friends, or if you as couples have other couples that you like to hang out with. This is a great event to come to. And for those that don't bring the kids, there's also these cooking shows that you might want to sit in on if you're interested in learning more about how to cook up that special dish for the holiday season.
And the Mayo Civic Center right there in downtown Rochester, easy to find, parking ramps, so it's very convenient. By the way, I'll take credit for the weather on Saturday, at least at this point. It's about the first day we're going to see a little bit of sunshine, so I'll take credit for that.
Yeah, and I think that'll help the turnout. You know as well as I do that some days, if the weather turns a little sour, people think about just maybe staying closer to home and cleaning the basement, or if they haven't put up the Christmas tree, they'll get that done. But I think with good weather, people are going to enjoy getting out and traveling and going to an event like this. And as you said, because the Civic Center is a multi-purpose facility, it's set up with parking very close by, right across the street in these ramps. So it's easy to get to. We'll have good signage, so you know exactly which part of the Civic Center to go to find us. And when you get there, I think you'll find that it's a day well worth spending with roughly 110 local food producers and processors from not only southern Minnesota. I think 40% are from our corner of the state, maybe 50%. Don't hold me to those percentages, but we do have folks that come in from other parts of Minnesota, and even a few that come in from across the border in Iowa and Wisconsin, because it's an event that's beginning to garner a lot of attention among folks that are in the local foods arena.
They can come from Iowa or Wisconsin as long as they aren't Hawkeye or Badger fans, right?
Yeah. Just don't wear your jersey.
Okay.
But we also have, I think, about 40% of that's where I got the 40% number. We have about 40% of our exhibitors this year that are brand new. So we get more exhibitors that come every year, and we're getting new exhibitors to reach out to us and register for the event. So there'll be new things to sample, even if you've come in previous years. Come again this year, because in addition to the folks that you met and the stuff you sampled last year, there'll be some new exhibitors there for you to check out their stuff too.
And I assume there's a website, maybe if you wanted to find exact details on what time something was going to be held, what cooking demonstration, there's probably a website with more information and maybe a listing of the different types of vendors and everything? Yeah,
probably the best thing you can do is go to our foundation's website, and that's smifoundation.org, or Google Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, and I'll bet you can even Google Feast Local Foods Festival, something to that extent, to that effect, and you'll come up with more information about the event. So those are some options if you need to find out more. But it's an event that you don't have to pre-register for. You just walk in the day of the event at the Rochester Civic Center. You can buy tickets on site. And if you want to save yourself a little money, you might want to swing by a Hy-Vee store or the local foods People's Co-op store in Rochester and get one of these 2-for-1 coupons.
We only have a couple minutes left, Steve, but wanted to get another plug-in for the Southern Minnesota Initiative. How people can maybe get involved? Do you need volunteers? I'm sure it's a 501c3 financial support, right?
Yeah, we are a nonprofit foundation, and we do raise about 10% of our budget from local donations, and that comes from individuals. It also comes from corporations, banks. Each of the counties in the region provides some level of support, but when you add all of that up, it's only 10% of our budget, and that means we're bringing $10 into this region for every dollar we raise within the region, and we think that's a good return on investment. And we do invest in those three ways. We have 26 community funds that we help these towns manage their local community funds and any endowment program that they've created for their community fund. So if you reach out to us and you live in or near any of those towns, I think the boards of directors of these local community funds are always looking for extra help on a variety of programs, either serving on their board or helping with activities that they're sponsoring. We also have a lot of early childhood work going on, and we do that across the 20-county region, and there are different ways that individuals can connect with us to help with that. And then for events like this, we're just trying to get the word out on the entrepreneurial side, because this local food sector is one where we see a lot of growth potential. And at an event like the Feast Festival, if you have an interest in local foods and you want to be helpful, we're not going to turn away volunteers. But get a hold of us. We're here in Owatonna at 525 Florence Avenue. Our phone number is 455-3215. And you can go to our website, as I mentioned earlier. That's smifoundation.org, or just Google us, and I'm sure if you type in Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, we'll be the first to pop up on your Google search.
I checked it out yesterday, and you are right. Well, I was on Google, and you were the first one that popped up.
Yep, and of course it is the giving season, so if people want to support our work, we're not going to turn away donations. But the main thing is that we're here to serve the Southern Minnesota region, and we try to be a good partner with other groups that are working on entrepreneurship, early childhood, as we are, and I think we set a good example of collaboration, and we try to leverage those resources to the maximum effect, and the Feast Festival is one example of that.
Tim, we have to run for the news. Thank Callie for helping organize this. Anything going on like this, make sure she gets a hold of me.
Will do. Thanks much. Happy holidays.
That was Tim Penny, president of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation.